Welcome back to Morning Trade Live. Want to get you ready for the opening bell. We do have a focus on crypto because crypto has been incredible this year. Year to date, you've seen Bitcoin up 25%, hit 123,000. But there's so more when it comes to cryptocurrency and digital assets. Joining me right now, Les Borsai, co-founder of Wave Digital Assets. Thank you so much for being with us. We've seen crypto, Bitcoin in particular, go from under 50,000 about a year ago to 123,000 recently. Main drivers, and does that continue in your mind?
Well, it sure feels like it's going to continue, and I hope it continues. And some of us got there before that price point, which was really a good thing. But yes, I think this administration is driving a lot of the inertia. Obviously, Bo Hines has a report coming out today, and it's based on the working group that the president put together in January, which was made up of members of CFTC, it was the SEC and Treasury and Commerce, and we're starting to get clarity, and I think with that clarity comes a bit of stability and confidence in the asset class.
When we look at Ethereum and XRP, both very important as well. As you mentioned, the Trump administration, both on the Trump administration's watch list here, right?
Yeah, and I think more than that eventually. And the thing about, XRP and Ethereum is, these are now alternative currencies that have different underlying purposes. And we're seeing traditional finance adopt these currencies into more traditional products. Obviously, after the success of the Bitcoin ETFs that we saw with BlackRock and a lot of other traditional finance companies, now we're going to start to see ETH ETFs more and XRP ETFs. And those currencies are a little bit different than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a store of value, and ETH is programmable money, where XRP is payments and payment solutions. So we're going to see a lot happening here.
We've seen Cathie Wood show her love here on Ethereum, for example. Is Ethereum due next for the breakout?
I think so, and I think we're already seeing that. If you take a look at how much it's actually been moving, and ETH was always kind of a really interesting alternative asset. If you look at the NFT boom, for instance, a lot of that was driven early on by ETH because of the underlying kind of technical foundations of it. So yeah, I think a lot of us are bullish on ETH.
Would you say that you see both of these hitting new highs, it sounds like, but I mean, could we see 20% gains, 50% gains in Bitcoin and Ethereum in the next, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months?
I mean, I think it depends on a lot of factors. And of course, you can see gains, but you can see losses just as easily. For those of us who've been in this asset class a long time, nothing surprises me anymore. It's obviously volatile to, geopolitical conditions and, other things that are happening in the marketplace. But, it's an exciting asset class. And I think the more traditional adoption we see of this asset class, the more stability and the more increases in price that we will see.
Yeah, and Trump-backed World Liberty Financial boosts the Ethereum holdings amongst all its crypto expansion. When we think about the Genius Act, which had 3 parts in it, that helps to propel this whole group higher, right? Should everybody have some Bitcoin or crypto in their portfolio?
Well, if you're asking me personally and not as an investment advisor, I think they should. But I think that's what we're starting to see, in terms of the advice that people are getting for their portfolios. And the report that's coming out today really does touch base on those 3 acts you were talking about, the Genius Act and Clarity and CBDC. And, what Bo has done is kind of brought, all of these, concepts together in terms of how the future looks and how, tokenization is going to take a part of this, and DeFi is going to take a part of this. And, a lot of terms that people don't actually, understand at scale yet, but they will. And they're actually pretty simple concepts when you think about things like tokenization, which is just taking these digital assets and tokenizing them and putting them on a blockchain. And that really is going to be technology that applies for the whole traditional finance sector.
And when I look at these blockchain select, I'm looking at AVAX, TRX, Height. SOL, Solana, right? Should we, NEAR, NEAR, are these important to also be following?
Yeah, I think so. But I think, the way to think about it is the same way to think about people that follow equities. Those companies are all incredibly specific when you invest in an equity, and you should understand what they mean. And when you say, Tron or AVEX, or, Solana, all of these tokens have different kind of underlying characteristics and different focus in terms of the markets that they're addressing. The same way, tech stocks differ from, bio stocks. So it's exactly the same, except there's digital economies connected to these tokens, and the tokens are the driving factor of those economies. So that's what this is really about, and that's what's so exciting.
We talk about how many people have made payments using crypto or stable coins, and here in the States, it's not that much as far as penetration, how much people are using stable coins. What's next for us? Should we get ready?
Well, I mean, I think those stablecoin numbers are actually, you're right. In this country, they're starting to increase when we see the Circle payments. And, you look at Tether, which is, the biggest stablecoin out there. And the volume is already pretty staggering without the adoption. And the thing about stablecoins, when people really need to think about is the fact that they just settle very quickly. They settle faster for lower fees. Often with bank wires, you have to wait, but with stable coins, you can do payments immediately. And, this is great for things like developing markets that don't have access to capital the way we do. I think crypto, from the good side of things, is impacting every aspect of finance right now. And we see all the institutionals really taking a closer look. So it's all very exciting.
Yeah, and I saw that SEC Chair Paul Atkins has been spearheading approval in this section, expansion, general adoption of crypto ETPs in U.S. markets. That's a big deal for you, Les, right?
Yeah, it is. We've been waiting a long time. And I think we got into this space initially. It was really complicated for us because we did follow a regulatory path, but there wasn't really one laid out. So, we're definitely one of those companies that wants that regulatory path, wants that clarity. And, you've seen the SEC take an incredible turn. We went from enforcement to adoption. And of course, that doesn't mean anything goes. We still want fraud and criminal activity to be prosecuted. But, for the people that out there that are innovating and developing, we want that to stay in the United States. And given the way the SEC now is approaching it and the CFTC is approaching it, it becomes really exciting. And the other thing is that's what the Clarity Act is going to really define. And we'll see some of that with the report today, in terms of whose responsibility for which asset class, and that's where we go back and forth with the CFTC and the SEC right now. That's a big part of clarity.
Les Borsai, great to see you. Wave Digital Assets, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.